Oh, hello everyone. Sorry, I didn't realize that I was on mute. So, hello everyone. My name is Shola Abulu. I'm the principal consultant of Shola Abulu and Associates. And if you're here, welcome. Please just give me an emoji. Let me know that you can hear me. How's my sound? Do I sound really well and good? Okay, sorry, I need to put myself on mute now. Okay, so welcome to today's edition of our live sessions. It's this session where today we're going to be talking about how to build an effective public sector communication structure and strategy. If you're here and you can hear me, just put in a comment or emoji. Let me know that you can hear me pretty well and that you can you can hear me well. Can you hear me, please? Okay. I assume that you can. If you cannot, just let me know. So let's get right into it. So we're going to be talking. We've done a lot of live sessions, and most of the time we focus on corporate sector and things like that. So this time around, this month we're going to be talking about public sector policy and political communications. Today's session is going to be focused on public sector communications, and this is the topic that we have. And the way it's going to run, I'm going to just go through this like in Q&A mode, and then you can I'll in lecture mode first of all, and then you can ask me questions afterwards. It is going to be very short and sharp, but just so that we can get the conversation going. And if you have any questions while we're just drop it in the comment section, and then I will take it afterwards. So, how do we build an effective public sector communication structure and strategy? Let's start off. So first of all, I always like to start with definitions. So what is the definition of terms? What is public sector? Public sector is any institution that is owned by the government, and I think most of us know this. Unlike the private sector that focuses on profit making, the public sector's aim is to serve the public interest and ensure that the well-being of citizens is well catered for. So it's very, very different. So it's government, and we all know what government is like. There's government at federal level, state level, local government level, whatever level it may be. So now the link with communications is that the public sector communications is the ways in which government agencies communicate with the public to share information, to engage citizens, and to build trust. It's a crucial aspect of democratic governance, fostering transparency, accountability, and participation. So it is very, very, it's just really about how you communicate about things going on in the public sector. And then when you ask yourself, why should the public sector communicate? It's a question that you would like to ask. But then I put up this, I don't know if you can see this. Let me just see whether I can remove the title a bit so that you can, let me put that down. Okay. So we're talking, yeah, I think this is better. So why would you want to communicate in public sector? You would want to communicate because I just gave an example. Let's assume this is a state government context. Look at all the stakeholders that a state government would have to deal with on a daily basis. These are different groups of people who have a lot of expectations of the government. Let's assume it's a state government. It could also be a government agency, fire service, health service, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Food and Agriculture. It could be anything. It could be the police. It could be the Financial Crimes Commission. It could be. There's a myriad of services that public sector handles for governments. Even no matter how small the country is, government agencies are many, and they have a lot of stakeholders that they deal with. So I gave this an example for a state government. Assuming this is a state government, this is just like how would I say, a macro stakeholder list of what their stakeholders would be like. And what they need to communicate and engage with all these people on a daily basis or periodic basis. Well, not every, in fact, daily. Somebody from government must be speaking to all of these people almost every day, at least every week, in some shape or form. It's either you are communicating to them directly, or your programs are touching them, or your projects are touching them, or your events are getting there, or there are some, there must be something. You're providing service, waste management, education, cleaning services, water, sanitation. You must be, if you are in government, you must have a very extensive stakeholder list. This is just an example. So you would need to communicate with them for support. Also, so that you can actually carry out your good governance, so that you can secure goodwill, also so that you can build trust, and of course credibility. And one area where I think a lot of people don't think about a lot is reputation. In the private sector, we talk a lot about reputation. I find out that in government, they don't factor in reputation. It's almost like we assume that reputation is a given, whereas that is not so. But communications has a role to play in terms of how we build the reputation, because even if you are doing a lot of good things, if the public doesn't know that you are doing those things, or it's only the people that are directly impacted by what you're doing that know that you're doing something, then your reputation will not be as positive or as well known, as amplified as it should be. So also you need to engage with all these people for compliance. I mean, in the state in which I live in, Lagos State in Nigeria, there are laws governing all these relationships, and the state really, would like you to comply. But then how can I comply with something that I do not know? I don't have enough information about. I don't know what it entails. So there has to be some level of communication. Excuse me. There has to be some level of engagement, and then partnerships as well. So just look at all of this: traditional rulers, youth groups, prominent citizens. So of course, to maintain social order and well-being, you need to communicate. You also need to engage, and for peace and stability as well, and also for social justice and citizens' rights. So lots of reasons. Now, what did I put inside in the middle here? As a state government, or as a public institution, or whatever you may be, you have your vision. You must have your vision. You also have your mission. You have, the mandates that you have been given. There is a brand, hopefully, that you also need to promote, whether you realize it or not. And I think I want to really, say something here, because I think a lot of public sector organizations do not realize that they have a brand, and that brand has a reputation, and that they're supposed to protect that brand. And when I mean protect, they're supposed to protect it by not doing things that will, make the brand be viewed in a very negative way. I don't see enough effort, people understanding that, particularly in the public sector, understanding that their actions can actually hinder their brand. So they expect, I don't know how they think that it works. I just feel that there's a whole brand awareness thing that needs to happen within a lot of public sector organizations. I even think that, I mean, for some public sector organization, and I'll name some are like police, for instance, in Nigeria. I think there actually has to be an internal branding targeted as them, to say, who are we? How do we want to present ourselves to the Nigerian public? What are our service deliverables? How do we want to be treated? And just do all of that, and just create pride in the institution as a whole, and have a sort of, like, I don't know whether it's a social contract or something. There's just something in that brand space, because the perception and around the brand is not very positive, and I do not really see anybody doing anything constructive to change it, other than just, superficial press statements, things just saying, this person is your friend, without doing anything to show that you're actually being friendly. You know what I mean? Or that, so that you can't see an integrated approach towards building what a brand is, that you can see in the way in which they present themselves and how they deal with the public. So that's just my view. I'm just using them as an example. And because this is about public sector communications, this also, plays out in private sector as well. But I think it's more visible because public sector organizations deal with the public a lot. Of course, that's why they're called public sector. So what is your purpose? What activities are you carrying out? What services, what programs, and what projects? So those are the things that you have as your mandate that you want to do. How do you then, position that externally is the issue, is what we're talking about now. And of course, communications has a big role to play in it. I have a theory. I may be right, I may be wrong. And for those of you that are here, I would like to hear from you. And please give me some feedback. Can you hear me? If you're hearing me really well, give me an emoji and all that. Let me just see something to show that you're hearing me well and that, all is good on your side. Um, so let's move to the next slide. So now, today's topic is about how to build an effective public sector communication structure and strategy. Now, what I'm going to try to show here is that the same things that we use to do for private sector strategic communications is exactly what applies for public sector as well. This framework applies to the public sector the same way as it does for private sector. So this is a strategic communication framework. We usually teach this in our classes. And if you want to build a communication strategy for public sector, this is what you should just look at. This framework will help you. So you should ask yourself these questions. What is the overall context of the government, agency, or institution? What are we trying to achieve? What is the problem? What is the challenge that we're trying to solve? And how does communication help? These are the questions. What is the desired outcome? Again, I will say that I don't really see most of the time a concerted effort towards managing communications in a holistic way. For some public sector agencies, I see it. And by the way, we're doing this, we're focusing on this topic because this month we're going to running a course on the 26th of June about political, public sector, and policy communications, and enrollment is ongoing. You can see a comment on the chat. The registration link is there. So that's why we're focusing on the public sector. It's the only time in the year that we're going to focus on the public sector. We'll go back to our normal topics from next month. But I think it's important for us to spend this time because, first of all, public sector really affects all our lives. And I think best practices should apply everywhere. Also on the course, we're going to be highlighting the areas where we've seen some public sector institutions apply best practices. So, what is the problem or challenge? So what's the mandate? It may not even be a problem. It may just be an agenda. What is the agenda? And what does success look like in measurable terms? And when I'm saying success, I'm not saying success in terms of, oh, how many campaigns did you do? How many events did you do? It's success in terms of how did the narrative shift? How was our reputation improved? How were we able to achieve compliance? All those things that we had written down. In fact, your success for communications in this sector should be linked to all these things. How did we get more support from people? How does this advance our cause for good governance? How has this helped us get goodwill? Has this increased trust? How has it made us more credible as a government or as a government agency? How has this affected compliance on a particular law or public or policy or whatever? And how has this increased our engagement with the with the citizens or with a specific group of citizens? That's really what we'll be looking at. That's really what you should be doing here. That's what you should be measuring as a communications KPIs. So using the framework, back to the framework now, ask yourself, who are the key stakeholders or audiences that you need to engage? It's very important because on every initiative or mandate or whatever, who are the key people? And I think governments do this pretty well, to be honest. I think they engage with their stakeholders very well, generally in the public sector. I think where there is room for improvement is how they communicate a lot of what they do with those direct stakeholders to wider audiences. Because, to give an example, while I was doing the research for this presentation, I just said, let me Google and see what the Ministry for Food and Agriculture is doing in the states where I reside. And I was surprised to see, I opened the page and I saw so many things on their website that I was not even aware that they do. One or two things I was aware of, like maybe some markets they had built, some food markets that had come up, but there was a lot. And I started asking myself that, so these communications, a lot of it is just hiding on their website, maybe on their social media pages. Maybe they just think it's only important for the farmers to know. But those of us who are food consumers also, are we not part of their audiences? So you just wonder. So there seems to be a stakeholder engagement strategy, but there is not an audience engagement, or there's not a broader communication strategy. Are you following me? So, whereas it should not be that way, because what you're doing is you are doing so much, and then the reputation mileage that you would have gotten from doing what you do, you're not getting it because you don't really have an integrated communications and engagement strategy. You are focused so much on what you're doing, you're not really communicating, and you still think that only a few people are interested in what you are doing. Your audience segmentation is not sufficient. So, and like I said, this is very, very common. Oh, yes, Adedoyin, thank you. You say you can hear me. Thanks, Adedoyin. Awesome. Thanks for joining. So, also, in terms of stakeholder profile, interest, influence, and expectations, what do you expect from each of the stakeholders? What do they expect of you? That's very important. Again, this is another area where I think public sector misses it a lot because I just don't understand it. And I think there's a bigger issue here about whether our public sector agencies understand that are you really here to serve? Are you here to meet the expectation? Because if there's an understanding that you are a service provider to the citizens, then that would reflect in your communications as well. That will reflect in your communication strategy. It will reflect in how important it is for you to understand your stakeholders so that you can communicate to them well. And again, let me not make a broad statement. I think they are able, I see public sector is able to do it in some spaces. I just find that it's in some spaces it's not, it doesn't seem it doesn't seem like it's being done as it should. So you also ask yourself, what do I need the stakeholders to know? What do I need them to do? And then most importantly, how do we want them to feel about us and about this government? I think again, this feelings aspect is also very is also ignored a lot. And it's not just in public sector. I think in private sector as well, a lot of people underestimate the importance of thinking about what the how people feel about you as a government, and not just the people who are like, okay, your friends and your allies, but people generally, the citizens as a whole. How do they feel? And of course, not everybody that will like you or like what you're doing, but majority should have a positive view about your institution. And if they don't, then that should be an issue that needs to be addressed, and communications needs to be involved with that, because you can do reputation surveys, perception surveys, find out what people, the information gaps, and then build a campaign around it. Again, these are a lot of things that in my home country I don't think they do a lot. In some other parts of Africa, like I think in Kenya and South Africa, I think some of the other countries in Africa are more strategic in terms of how they manage their communications. Um, I'm, there are pockets of excellence within Nigeria in this space, but generally speaking, you don't really see that structured approach. What you see more is like an events approach to communication, where they're just communicating based on the events that are on the calendar of the public sector leader or everything. So based on the commissioning schedule, that's how you do your communication. So it's very difficult for us as the audience to connect the dots. It's very, very disjointed, let's put it that way. And another thing I also noticed, still on this issue of feeling, is that the some of the philosophy seems to be they're very project oriented and not people driven. So that comes out in the projects too, because even in the way in which they just believe that, oh, once I commission, the people should be happy. I don't I don't get that mindset. Whereas you're not building bridges with the people. You're not sending out messaging that makes people feel good about you. You're not, do you understand? You're not wooing the people in any way, but you're just throwing projects and events, and somehow you think that that is going to make them build trust. It doesn't happen that way. So I would, and I hope I'm communicating. So if you're listening, please just give me, I don't know if any of this is making sense, but I just feel that, and that is why, by and large, a lot of governments, in my view, do not have the trust. If you like, commission 10,000 projects, because the people, you are just not engaging with the people in the way that you should. So even the projects, are you really sure the way you are going about it is how the people go? You are like, yes, we want to build the road, so I don't care, we just move people anyhow. And then you expect, it's just funny. I just think that there's a lot that needs to be done in that space. And I know that communicators may not, these are decisions that are above the pay grade of communicators. These are the political leaders making some of these decisions. But I think that as if you're a communication strategist or an advisor working in that space, if you have the opportunity, I think there's a way you can manage that communication space that you can influence the approach at some level, even if you cannot influence the approach at the project management level, at the communications level. You can try to build trust a little bit, at least in the tone and the language of the speeches that are coming through. Think about the feelings and the sentiment of the people, particularly if you know people are already upset. Address those sentiments, and just try to build bridges. I do not see enough of that. So and yeah, so and what are the risks? So I think anyway, let me not go into that, because I think in the political space, this makes it easier it just makes it very complex, unnecessarily complex. I find it funny because I'm like, and this is one advantage that public sector has that I don't think they fully understand. In the private sector, we're always looking for things to do that we can say, that we can communicate, that and put our brand behind. It's a problem because most of us, the things that people do on private sector level, they may not be stories that you can humanize. But in government, you have human stories. Everything you do is a human story. So you have so much content that you can use to build trust and build reputation, but you're just squandering it. You're misusing it. They're not even, taking the opportunities that are available. But anyways, so the next thing is, what are the risks that you see? And how will you mitigate any of those communication risks? I talked about, for instance, even if you are doing a project, you are convinced that that project is the best project for the people. Maybe the people don't feel that way, and you may not agree with them, but then you have to bear that in mind when you are communicating as well. And how do you mitigate that? The top-down approach to communications, which I think is used to be a thing of the past, it's no longer like that anymore. And I don't want to give some specific examples in Nigeria, but we've had some cases recently, many cases in fact, where public sector officials have come out and said certain things, and then 24 hours, 7 hours later, citizens are going to those locations and saying, what you told us is not exactly what has happened out there, and the government has no response. So for me, it's just shameful. I don't understand why we're doing communications like this in 21st century, 2025. We can't continue like this into 2030. So something needs to just change. So again, think about your messaging to the stakeholders. I mean, and I think that's what I've been talking about. You have to take all of this into consideration. Everything from this first column all the way down to this amber column that I have here. You really, you don't just say what you want to say, but you have to think about it. Is it going to land well? I don't know. I mean, if as a communicator I release a press statement, and at the end of the day people are challenging it after, don't you feel bad? How do you feel about that? Although I know some public sector, some people don't mind, I know, but I just wonder. So again, what I had in red here is, what actions do you need to take to enable the outcomes you like to see? It's important that you say that and you understand that, because again, when you take those actions, that then becomes what you can put in your speeches. And a lot of I think this is why, honestly, a lot of public sector speeches, they are lacking in substance because they are not able to communicate tangible things. I will give an example, and apologies if you're here, you're not Nigerian, and I'm giving a lot of examples that are only Nigerian, but that's what comes to mind for now. The Minister for Interior, I think, is a good example of someone who has done, has worked that reputation formula of performance plus behavior plus communication. So he has delivered tangible changes. I mean, I will mention something recently. I had to go into the recently go online and try to test out their passport renewal form for Nigeria. And I put in my old passport number. And lo and behold, all my details came out online. I couldn't believe it. In all my life, I'm 50 plus, I have never seen such. The only time I ever see my data, passport data, is when I go into the immigration office and the passport official is calling it up in front of his very dedicated laptop, and they call me to come and check the details. That's the only time. This time I saw it in my on my desk, I saw my details, everything complete. I cannot even imagine the level of, do you know what? Nigeria, we're millions or hundreds of millions. The kind of data they must have gone through. And it didn't take me, no issue. I just put in my numbers, my thing, boom, it came out. So well, if you have to, even me, if I have to write a speech for him, I can write a speech for him within 30 minutes because the performance is there. And I don't have to use propaganda. I don't have to lie. I don't have to misinform. He has delivered enough proof points that lend itself to very good storytelling. And that is why people like me, as you can see, and everybody knows I'm not a fan of certain government officials, particularly some, So for me to be saying this, that it's an experience that I have had. I haven't even gone through the entire process, but for me, that's putting in data and it's coming out. I know what is behind it because I have had to work in organizations that are custodians of database. I know what happens when they say, oh, they did one refresh, they lost all the data. To maintain data that you can call up, even the elections, we know what they did with it and data. So, I mean, you have to give. So it's doable, is the point. So so you need to have, before you go out and start saying things. So I see a lot of, so he is an outlier, actually. Because what is more common in our space are people just going out to communicate, even when they have not done, the embellishing, saying what they did not do, adding salt and pepper. Do you understand? Just embellishing. I don't want to say lying. In some cases, outright misinformation. And you by that and by doing that, you're actually, I don't know how to explain it. You are causing disrespect to the office. Because if you can't trust what you in that office say, then what's the point? So identify the actions that you need to take. So what is your messaging? Who is best positioned to communicate or engage on that issue? And if there's a press statement, who should sign it? If there's a press conference or whatever, who should be on the panel? Think very carefully about it because, again, it's about what you want to achieve. It's not just that I want to be there and let them take photo, let me show up on the first front page of the papers. Particularly if it's if there's a very complex situation going on, just be very strategic. Again, I know that political communicators, we may not be the ones, these things are determined by the leaders, but you can give your advice. And if at the end of the day it goes well, they don't take your advice, that's fine. If it goes well, all well and good. If it doesn't go well, next time you tell them, that's why I was telling you this thing. We're trying to manage this sensitivity, and then maybe next time they will listen to you. So also think about, which platform. You need to have a platform strategy. This is very, very important. I see many people now. I think that some public sector officials, they have a very lazy approach to communications. Again, if you're in public sector, you have to use mass communication. Peso is your friend. Paid, earned, shared, and owned media. You can't be picking your platforms and you can't be lazy about it. You have to have a real content development strategy, and you have to go the whole hog. And I will show you my a structure of how I think your communications team should look like. It's private sector that can be saying, oh, you run it with one comms person, two people. You people don't have that luxury. You need to have a very extensive communications team. I'm not even talking, of course, we know at the federal level they have it. We know that. I mean, agencies, state governments, you really, really need to run it, and in an integrated manner. Is that integration that is largely missing? So of course, you monitor it, you get feedback from your platforms, and then you improve as you go along. Again, I know a lot of these things. Some of you listening may be like, Shola, you're talking like in an ideal world. Well, it's true. I am doing so, but again, when I see pockets of excellence, that shows me that it is possible. Like the example I gave of the current Minister of Internal Affairs. There's also another pocket of excellence from the chairman of the fiscal policy, the president of the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Tax Reform. The way they manage the communications around that tax reform, I think, is also best in class. And that's something that he's currently in position. We've also had in the past a Nigerian public official in charge of Food and Drug Administration. Her communications, even before social media, was best in class. She became a household name just by being in fact, oh Lord, it's so painful I wish, because what she achieved without social media, people are still struggling to achieve it, even with social media at your fingerprints. But by using traditional media, she made sure she elevated NAFDAC, to the Nigerian Food and Drug Agency, to the level where it is today, where the fear of NAFDAC is the beginning of wisdom. If NAFDAC tells you, this drug is not safe for use, we believed it even over and above the Food and Drug Agency from the US. So she built trust, she built credibility, In the brand of the institution, it also rubbed off on her as an individual, but it was communications and engagement. Of course, she did her work as well. She went everywhere. She did a lot of, but her messaging was clear. She told the story of her sister who had died through fake drugs, and that was the motive. So she did human storytelling. She went, she has stakeholder mapping. She to the drug, the pharmaceutical companies, the hospitals, the ministers of health. Oh my word, best in class. In fact, maybe I will do a case study on her just to analyze how public sector officials should operate. And she did all of this before social media. So please, I don't understand why some people now, the way they are running. But again, it all boils down to your values and your philosophy. Are you there to serve, or are you there to extract? I think that's the thing. Or are you there just to just hold the position? So I need to bring this to a close almost soon because I'll take some questions. I know it's a work day. We all just got well in Nigeria. We just got back to work today, so I don't take too much of your time. So this is a structure that I came up with that I felt is how I think every public sector agency should have this. Now, I'm not saying that all of these roles have to be held by this number of people. No, I'm saying these are the tasks and the activities that need to be carried out. So you need to have somebody at the top who is a communication strategist. That person is one that is going to bring everything together. Again, I know that in a public sector setting, I think it should be easier to do this. In a political setting, I know it can be tough because sometimes political leaders get advice from different people, so they will never ever want one person to be one powerful person. There will be like three of them all competing side by side. It's not ideal, but that's the way it works there. But we're talking ideal here. For public sector, I think this should be doable because public sector, you have an office, it's not everyday political, you have a job, there's an organization, you are paying salary, people, civil servants, on payroll and all that. So you need a bit of structure. So you should have a public relations and brand marketing manager. Why did I use that term? Because you think that in government, there is no marketing. No, you have to market your institution. The same way Dora Akinyele of blessed memory did for NAFDAC. If we don't know your agency, those of us that live in the states that you are functioning, there is a problem. Why are you not a household name? Are you not serving households? Do you understand what I'm saying? Why are you? Why don't we even know you? You like to hide in obscurity. So that brand needs to be marketed. And like I said, even like in Nigeria now, the federal level, there are some commissions, there's some that they are happy in obscurity. Nobody even knows that they exist, but every year they are budgeting for them. And NAFDAC, before Mrs. Akinyele came on, was not really that well known. But till today, to show you that institutional change is possible, even after she's passed on, NAFDAC still has been elevated to a level, whereas in the mind of the Nigerian government, it wasn't really seen as, it's not perceived as one of the big agencies. But she was able to create that sensitivity that food and drugs, which has to do with health and safety, is crucial to the Nigerian people and the Nigerian economy. So till today, that institutional brand has a reputation and a place of respect in Nigeria that ordinarily its portfolio and the way in which the political system looks at it would not have given to it. Because the people that they think that are the big ticket groups are like Central Bank, Ministry of Petroleum, those kind of things. And NAFDAC is just an agency. It's not a ministry. But its profile is very high, even up till now. So to be honest, I would really like to go back. It's just that a lot of what she did, I don't know how much it was archived to really see how she did it, because she must have had a structure and how she managed her communication. But I know she did a lot of prints. She did a lot of media appearances, and she did a lot of explaining, engagement. She was always talking and meeting people and consulting. Oh my word. Anyways, so you need to have that. So your events, campaigns, outreaches, that person managing that. Community relations. And again, this is just a suggestion. Remember, I was using the example of state governments. If you are in a different type of agency, you may not need community relations and all of that. But I mean, if I use the NAFDAC example, of course, they will need community relations because local pharmacies, the networks of people that manage drugs, traders and all that, they have to have people relating with those communities as well. Media relations, somebody managing media, under that, external messaging, publicity and advertising for outdoor and traditional media. It may not necessarily involve the social media space because that one will be handled by the social media team. And then print, TV, and radio. Editorial also handling your ebooks, e-newsletters, online articles, blog posts, and all of that. Now, internal comms, very, very important because again, like using the NAFDAC example, using um, the Ministry of Internal Affairs as well. If you do not get your internal workers on side about what you are trying to do, there's no way they will go outside and mess you up. So the awareness creation has to start from within. The change management has to start from within. You have to be communicating to people and let everybody have that shared vision. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is how the system is going to change. I can imagine the internal communications that the Minister of Internal Affairs would have had to do for his officials, for them to understand that we're going to put this thing online and this is how it's going to change. People are going to apply online. They're not going to have to come here first. Massive change. How he did it within a short time it really amazes me. So definitely there must have been a very strong internal communication strategy, and that is needful. So again, you see here, like even as I'm talking about this, I'm saying that it is clear in all the examples that I have shown. So to show you how that for all the public sector leaders who seem to really want to do something, they all, one thing that was common amongst all of them is communications, either internal or external. For NAFDAC, it was internal and external. Ministry of Internal Affairs, clearly internal. In fact, I think both too, because he communicated about all this when he was doing all the moving to online. Several sessions, he talked about that. And also with who was the third person? The chairman of fiscal reform. Oh yeah, tax. Yeah, I don't know, but he would have done the internal. I'm sure. I don't know, but the external really, really massive. So then the website and the online piece, that will also be managed, separately like that. And then content creators have account handlers for each pages. Please do not have the same people running all the pages. It's very rare to find people who can manage different platforms. They are platform experts. Again, if you're public sector, like I said, budget for it because it's important to your work. There's no way you can deliver on your agenda without communicating broadly. So yeah, so just to bring that to a close, these are the sort of things. This is just to give you a sneak preview of what we're going to be talking about on the 26th of June. So you will see that even though you are not private, even if you are not in the public sector, you will see that a lot of what I'm sharing it's really the principles of strategic communication, but I'm making it in the public sector context, but it also applies to everybody. But if you're in the public sector, private sector, you're a consultant, you are or you feel like one day you may one day be a consultant for them, or you're already working with them, please come on and join us. We'll teach how to use the strategic framework to build a holistic strategy and plan. All those things that I glossed over, we'll go into it even more in depth. Platform strategy, content strategy, that type of thing. We'll analyze all those a few of the public sector officers that I have said have done really well, and what we've seen that they've done that we think that works. I would, to be honest, I see this month as a month to advocate for a better way of doing things in public sector communications, policy communications, and especially political communications. I don't understand why things are done the way they are, except you are just inherently, I don't want to use the word evil, because it's like they are, I feel that they are working hard to do things the wrong way. Whereas the right way is so much easier, so much effort in the wrong direction. It's really amazing to me. So if you would like to join us, please register. You can see the registration link, it's in the comments. And there's a discount ongoing till the 14th of June. Yes, I believe 10% discount. So you can also benefit from that if you would like. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please drop it in the chat. I may have missed one or two. Okay, no, just from Adedo. If there are any comments, let me know, and I will take them or questions. We'll bring this to a close shortly. Comments, questions. I hope I'm not missing any because it always happens every time. Anibet, am I missing any questions or comments? Okay. It seems I don't have any questions or comments that I'm missing. If not, then I will bring this to a close. And so thanks everyone for okay, Adedoye said thank you. This was informative as always. Thanks, Adedoye. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, so I know that a lot of people, more people would probably watch this afterwards, and I'm hoping that So if you have any comments afterwards, after watching it, also let me know. Just share them with me, and I honestly, like I said earlier, I really do hope that there will be a different approach to communications in the public sector, and like I said. The good thing is that some people are actually leading the way. That for me shows that it's doable because I always like like a lot of what I've shared today, you would think that, oh, it would be like it's theoretical if somebody else hasn't done it. But then somebody has done it. In fact, in the course, we're going to be x-raying. We have examples from within South Africa, Kenya, but I'm also going to be x-raying a bit of the Nigerian examples. And it's just unfortunate that, I don't know, I think we should be celebrating those people that have done really well in terms of performance, in terms of managing stakeholder relationships, and particularly their communications. And it was even just as I was talking today that I realized that everyone that did well in this space, communications was a very strong part of their delivery. There is not one of them that did what that is achieved what they did without some next level, like really best in class communication. So there's a real appetite in that space. I mean, the chairman of the Fiscal Reforms Committee has been able in Nigeria has been able to pass a very difficult bill, which also had a lot of opposition initially. But the stakeholder engagement, if you go to his pages on social media, oh my word, you may not, you can't say he did not, they over communicated, they over in a good way, you know what I mean. So there was no under communication. There's nothing that is coming out in the bill that is a surprise to anybody anymore, because all the people that should have been in the conversation were given an opportunity to be a part of the conversation. And so it was a very strategic approach, it was a very structured approach. Of course, it has a background in consulting, so that consulting mindset really came out, but it delivered. It delivered without rancor. So I have a problem with, and it's also my advocacy to public sector officials. Please stop creating unnecessary drama. I don't think anybody is sending you that message, because if we have other people working for the same government and are doing their work in a best in class way, it's then you that you are doing agbero communication. It's your choice. Don't tell me that it's the political leader that is making you do it. You like it. That's why you are doing it like that. Although I know leadership is very important, because in this case, clearly, this was the leaders set the tone. But let's as communications professionals, let's not make it so easy for the people who want to do things in a certain way to do it. So that's I'll bring this to a close at this point, and see you on our next video, and hopefully see some of you in class on the 26th of June. So till next time, bye, and stay, how would I say, engaged, and stay communicating. Thank you, and speak soon.